All leads back to control. The government controls what we eat. They control what we think. They control what we feel. And then we wake up one day and be like, damn, I got...
But isn't that American dream? That American dream is... Because there's more people that live that type of fucking American reality. But isn't that American dream? That American dream is. Because there's more people that live that type of fucking American reality. But isn't that American dream? That American dream is. Because there's more people that live that type of fucking American reality.
QAnon, my futon, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for.
It's madness, yo. All the things that we could talk about.
Call it.
But let's talk about these urban circumstances real quick.
And basically, it's
we got this.
So,
revolution.
Winner's frosty hand. Muhammad is the fame's name, forever stand.
Standing on royal fusing of justice for the few, ridiculed by the pale terrorists, bent on genocidal obsession, rooted in fear of neglection and abandonment, fueled by nightmares of ancestors' jealousy.
Because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington.
The kind of friends I think our friends should be like my friends. My friends are the kind of friends I think everyone needs. My friends see the things at times I don't see. My friends hate the police.
What has changed?
Are deemed the criminals, and the blacks are deemed the criminals.
shut up and help.
Reflection ain't nothing but the inner child trying to see you. You gonna look? You gonna pick up that book?
Lord, keep me far from the faith. Guide me through night and day. Teach me your ways. Show me the righteous way to sway. Lord, can you teach me, please? Show me the way, I'd say. Grand Risings, and welcome back to another episode of the Urban Conservative with Chaz Neal. We're excited to have you join us on this thoughtful discourse and community engagement. The Urban Conservative is proudly sponsored by the We Unblock Network, an organization committed to promoting transparency, truth, and accountability in our media landscape. Here at the Urban Conservative, our mission remains steadfast to bring you the latest news directly from the streets, addressing critical topics such as gun violence, crime, politics, and perhaps most importantly, exploring solutions to the profound challenges our communities face. As we embark on this third season, the focus is clear. It's time to actively contribute to the transformation of our communities for the better. How can we achieve this? The answer lies in a multifaceted approach that starts with reconnecting with our core family values. Strengthening our sense of community is paramount, fostering bonds that transcend the barriers that often divide us. Moreover, it involves embracing our foundational roots, recognizing the historical and cultural threads that weave through the fabric of our society. In this season, we're calling for more than words. We seek action. It's a plea to move beyond mere rhetoric and engage in tangible, impactful initiatives that contribute to positive change. The time for empty words has passed. Now more than ever, we need to put our convictions into action. Together, united by a common purpose, we can make a substantial and lasting difference in the well-being of our communities. So join us on this journey as we explore not only the challenges, but also the opportunities for growth and progress. Together, let's turn our shared vision for stronger, safer, and more connected communities into a reality. Thank you for being a part of the Urban Conservative with Chaz Neal, a platform dedicated to fostering change and making a positive impact on the world around us. Shut up and help. Today, it's Friday, the 16th. And I wanted to, it's Black History Month. I wanted to talk about an individual who wasn't born in Minnesota, but did a lot of great things while he was living in Minnesota. And he did die in Minneapolis. And I'm talking about Frederick Jones, who was a trailblazing inventor, transformed the landscape of food distribution with his groundbreaking invention of the first successful mobile refrigeration system. Before Jones's innovation, the reliance on ice and salt for preserving food during transport was far less effective. In 1938, local merchant Joseph Numero casually promised a trucking company a refrigerated truck that could withstand the bumps and vibrations of shipping. Jones, employed by Numero, rose to the challenge, creating a durable compact unit with a mounted compressor powered by a four-cylinder engine. This invention, utilized in trucks, railroad cars, ships, and planes, revolutionized the transportation of perishable goods. Fresh produce could now reach any corner of the country year-round, fundamentally altering American eating habits. Inspired by their success, Jones and Numero founded Thermo King Corporation to manufacture the mobile refrigeration device. Thermo King quickly became an international powerhouse, boasting over $1 billion in annual sales by 1997, when it was acquired by the Ingersoll Rand Company. Despite minimal formal schooling, Jones's ingenuity earned him the title of the first African American to receive the National Medal of Technology. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio, his legacy lives on in the way we access and enjoy fresh food globally. Frederick Jones' contributions to the mobile refrigeration have left an edible mark on the world, showcasing the power of innovation and determination. And I want people to remember this, is that Frederick Jones did all of this before we had the Civil Rights Act, and was recognized because of his merit, because of the things that he did. And that's what I want to talk about today. We all know that it's February, it's Black History Month. And here in Minnesota, we are in a legislative session. And that's why I want to talk about two bills primarily that have been reintroduced this year, and that were introduced last year, but didn't get very far, even though we have what we want to call the trifecta, which is the governor, the Senate, and the House, which have a majority in the chambers. So it's not like we can't, get these things through, because when it comes to, giving driver's license for all, and what I mean by that is undocumented people, that went right through the chambers, you know what I'm saying? Gender affirming care, that went right through the chambers. School resource officers, the laws and things like that breezed right through. But when it comes to things that matter to Black Americans, there's such an issue with passing things for us. And the first bill that I wanted to discuss today, and I don't think a lot of people fully know what is out there because, you're not seeing a lot of this in the media. You're not seeing a lot of our activists talking about it, but you do see a lot of people talking about reparations, right? But I don't see that talk here in Minnesota so much. And, there's so much talk about how, there's so much systemic issues when it comes to separating Black families, but yet nothing is ever done about it. Well, I want to get into a bill right now that is out there, and it was authored, if I'm not mistaken. No, that's the wrong one. So, no, that's the wrong one too. But if I'm not mistaken, the bill was authored by Sandra. Oh wait, nope. This bill was authored by Bobby Champion, at least on the Senate side. And the bill that I'm talking about is the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act. It is designed to safeguard the best interests of African American children and bolster stability within their families. And if people don't understand, so there's sections of a bill. And section 2 is basically the purpose of the bill. And the Act's threefold purpose: protecting children, ensuring stability, and improving permanency outcomes. A commitment not to interfere with the protections of the Indian Child Welfare Act. Now, I want people to remember that because it talks about the American Indian Child Welfare Act. 3, the section is definitions, understanding the essential definitions from active efforts to egregious harm. In this statement, we look at, I want to get into the key elements and the key data and statistics, because I found a video that Khalees Houston, Thomas Berry, and Bobby Champion on February 9th, 2024. So just last week, just last Friday, didn't even put the 2 dates together. That was a public hearing, and they were talking about this act. And they put a lot of data, statistics out here, and I think it's important to really see what they're meaning by that, because it really goes into great detail. And I want to show people, because your Grand Rising, you're going to hear it better coming from professionals and not somebody who is self-educated and does this to better their community so that people are aware. So let me hush. And this is about 30 minutes, but I'm going to stop it here and there and talk about different things, because I believe that they go into great details about things. And I think people fully need to understand and to comprehend what is being said.
And Representative Pinto, who is also co-chair of this important task force. So thank you for having us this morning. Would you like me, Madam Chair, to just go right into my presentation?
Yes, that would be wonderful. And I would like to mention that Senator Champion is also a vice co-chair of this committee. So thank you for your work here as well. Get to it.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act. And before I start, I want to just let the committee know that I have with me Khalees Houston, who is on my left, and she's been the fierce advocate for this bill over a number of years, as well as on my right, we have Thomas Berry, who has also been an important advocate here. We also have in the audience, just so you know, Linda Sloan is with us. She's with the Council for Minnesota African Heritage. Ethnic council was previously known as the Council for Black Minnesotans. So we are happy to have her here as well. As you'll see, that there's a cross section of people in the audience to support us. They all can come forward and testify and raise their hand, because we don't allow that to happen here in the Senate, but we want you to know that they're here. And you may ask the important question, which we hope that that it would be answered today, although I'm sure that you know, because Senator Mitchell and Representative Pinto, you all have been deeply engaged around this issue. So for those who are listening to us and those who are viewing this, I will set the stage, and then I'm going to turn it over to Khalees Houston. All of the data shows that African-American children are overrepresented in the child welfare system in 48 states. And it's been largely due to decisions that are made at every decision point, challenging decisions that are made at every decision point. However, the research shows that there's no difference in the occurrence of child abuse and neglect among races, but African-American children are overrepresented. And so African-American children disproportionately in families in child protection cases is significant for the United States and Minnesota in particular, which is why we are here today. And the African American Family Preservation Act proposes to change the way African American children and families are handled within the legal system when abuse and neglect are at issue. And so and there's a bill that has been in front of not just this body, but both the House and Senate. And I will tell you a little bit about it. The purpose of this bill is to keep African American children in Minnesota intact and those families intact when they encounter child protection services. So this bill intends to address disparities that African-American families face in the child welfare system. And so there's a number of provisions in this bill that I will just highlight momentarily, just so you know. And these disparities show how often African-American families are reported to child protection services, and how it is more likely African-American children are separated from their caregivers for arbitrary reasons compared to white families. So there's significant concern. And so this bill establishes the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act, providing for child protection, out-of-home placement, and termination of parental rights processes specific to African American children. So this bill requires case reviews. It creates an African American Child Welfare Oversight Committee, amongst a number of things, including grants, because we do think that there has to be an intentional investment in order to make sure that the changes we are proposing are resourced. Because it makes no difference to make a change if you don't provide the resources in order for real change to be implemented. Again, you will see, because I know my legislative responsibility is also articulate what's in that bill. So Section 1 is for the citation, as you'll see. Section 2 is for the purpose statement, because we think the purpose statement helps to put in context why this is important. Section 3 articulates the definitions. Any good lawyer knows you always have to have definitions, and I know I see two lawyers in front of me. Section 4 is the duty to prevent out-of-home placement and promote family reunification. Section 5 is for non-custodial parents and temporary out-of-home placement issues. Section 6 deals with emergency removal hearings. Section 7 deals with the transfer of permanent legal and physical custody and termination of parental rights, and how there should be a step-by-step analysis as to how you do it, and where families or non-custodial parents should be elevated in that process along with kin. Section 7 deals with responsible social service agency conduct and case review, and there is a section that says, in the event that someone has behaved badly, not just make a bad decision, but badly in a way that is detrimental to a family, that there should be something done about that. Section 9 deals with the African American Child Welfare Oversight Council. Section 10 deals with the African American Child Wellbeing Unit. And as I mentioned, Section 11 deals with preservation grants and the petition and the hearing. And then Section 14 deals with the African American Cultural Competency Training, which we believe is also important. And last but certainly not least, and there's one more section, two sections, to disaggregate the data and ensuring frequent visitation for African American children and out-of-home placement. Those sections will come to life. And I'm now going to turn it over to Khalees Houston, as I mentioned, who's been dealing with this bill and in the system for quite some time, and she will give substance to my skeletal version of things.
Ms. Houston, could you please state your name and agency for the record?
Sure. Khalees Houston, Executive Director of Village Arms, Chair of the NAACP's Child Protection Committee, and I also want to address Child Protection and Family Law Attorney Rhea Borman-Spears, who's joining us as well.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. In Minnesota, systemic racism exists at every decision point of the child protection process. I provided you all with the PowerPoint, so I'm going to speed through this for the sake of time. I want you all to note that race and ethnicity information collected on children in Minnesota includes the category 2 or more races. Children identified in the 2 or more races category are a growing population within Minnesota, and they make up the majority of the children under this category have a Black parent, nearly 60%. So this differentiation really skews the data about how many of our families are involved with the system and how many of our children are actually displaced. So the numbers we see in reference to African Americans are always higher. We always take the African American category and combine it with the 2 or more races category. African American children in Minnesota remain overrepresented. According to current data, 26% of the children or more in foster care in 2021 were African American, although they make up only 10% of the state's child protection population. There's a video here that I won't play for everyone, but I'm hoping that committee members will take the time out to review it. As compared to white children, African-American children are overrepresented in rates of reports to CPS. We're 3 times more likely to be reported. Once the call comes in, if the family is Black, we're 2.4 to 4.7 times more likely to be screened in. And our families, unfortunately, have their children removed at 2 to 7 times the rate of our white counterparts. Our families are being screened into investigation for less serious allegations than our white peers, but our children continue to be displaced at higher rates. That should not be. Several components influence these disparities, starting with our mandated reporters. Our school personnel make up the majority of reports to child protection, and current data shows that they over-report Black children to child protection. There was a school in the Minneapolis district with only a 16% student population. They made 145 calls to child protection. 130 of those calls were on their African-American student base. This is essentially the front door to child protection. And because we know that this exists, we can't simply just train the mandated reporters. We have to do something to kind of stop that incoming of those families. Once a CPS report is received, and this is just showing you why some of these disparities exist. Once the CPS report is received, the child protection workers determine whether a family requires a family investigation or a family assessment. And when assigning reports to a family investigation path, there are both mandatory reasons and discretionary reasons. Allegations concerning Black children are more likely to be assigned for investigation for discretionary reasons than those concerning white children. Although Black families are entering the system, again, for less serious allegations than their white counterparts, they continue to face the most harsh and punitive outcomes at significantly higher rates, such as child removals, maltreatment findings, and termination of parental rights.
Now, I want to read this part right here, right? Because it says, although Black families are entering the system for less serious allegations than their white counterparts, they continue to face the most harsh and punitive outcomes at a significantly higher rate. Why is that? Because you have people that come in to be foster parents, to be involved in a system to where they're supposed to care for children that are supposed to be allegedly that are abused, that are mentally maybe ill, that come from situations that are already have messed them up, and then go into situations that are going to mess them up even more. And they shouldn't have the time. Most of these kids shouldn't even be in those placements anyways. But let me be quiet because we still got about another 12 minutes on this that I want to play, because there is some very good data and statistics that come out. And my question is, if everybody knows this, why don't we ever do anything about it but throw money at task force or look for more recommendations instead of actually doing impactful initiatives or, things that are going to make change for not just a few, but so that everybody can feel it.
This is especially important because the investigation track is a more punitive and intrusive intervention that may involve the court and a maltreatment finding, a finding that we don't speak much about, although it is extremely damaging and harmful to families, most of which are already dealing with issues related to poverty. A maltreatment finding could lead to a loss of employment and subsequently housing. So it really affects the long-term well-being of our families and can create a future cycle of child protection involvement, or a cycle of future child protection involvement, excuse me. Statistics confirm that Black families are less likely to receive in-home services that prevent removal. In Minnesota, African-American children and children of 2 or more races, again, facing the same or less serious allegations, are removed from their home at a rate 2 and 7 times higher than their white counterparts. One of the contributors to this is poverty being labeled as neglect. Local and low-income families, are more likely to seek medical care from emergency rooms or public clinics, use public transportation. It makes them more visible to child protection agencies and more susceptible to over-policing and surveillance. Why is the rate of child welfare involvement higher for certain groups in comparison to others? Institutional racism. It's the existence of systemic policies and practices that allow one racial group to have better outcomes than another. In this environment, disproportionality is often tolerated as normal rather than investigated and challenged, and we're here to challenge it today. There's often a cultural divide between a family being investigated and the worker conducting the investigation. In a 2012 study, researchers used an experiment to test the racialized perceptions of hundreds of child welfare workers across Minnesota. Researchers discovered that the caseworkers were significantly more likely to agree that the photo of the Black baby, not the white one, met the state's definition of neglect. This Minnesota study also calculated that the caseworkers' racialized perceptions of neglect were also related to the disproportionate rates of substantiating child neglect as well against Black parents. 2 facts reveal a contradiction at the heart of the child welfare system. 15 times Eric Dean was reported to CPS as a child in danger. He was never removed from his home, and he was eventually murdered by his abuser. In cases involving African-American parents, the opposite is true. Our children are typically removed from home, at times after 1 call to CPS based on less serious allegations. I was already at the Capitol fighting around this issue in 2014 when Eric Dean was murdered. There was an influx of folks from the governor's office to every director you could think of demanding that child protection be reformed. So I saw how quickly this system can be reformed when our legislators care. And what we're hoping to do today is to get you all to care about what's happening to Black children as well. According to the Minnesota Department of Health, disproportionate out-of-home placement rates are not the result of poor parenting by certain ethnic groups, but the outcome of multiple systems with long histories of discrimination and racist practices that enforce policies unfairly, unjustly, and unethically, while failing to provide enough supports to parents and guardians. And the gentleman that presented before us really illustrated that and where we're spending our money. Though well-intentioned, many child welfare caseworkers approach their work with a predisposed cultural viewpoint and often bring stereotypes into their subjective experiences with their work with our families. And they're using that to, they're allowing that to steer their judgment. I'm gonna pick on Hennepin County here for a bit, although this is a statewide issue. Families of African descent make up just 13% of the total population, but we're over 70% of the screened-in reports in Hennepin County, 50% of the removals in 2020, that increased to 60% in 2021, and 55% of the children that lose the right to know, be cared for, and loved by their parents are African-American children. In Ramsey County, our children are 55% of their removals. In Dakota County, 42%. There's a misconception about the reasons our children are being removed from home. For years and historically, neglect has always been the leading cause. But since we've pushed back on that because you can't remove a child based on poverty, they're saying that it's due to substance use. Substance use is leading, according to DHS's reports, neglect following, And then physical abuse and sexual abuse are at the bottom. 6.9% of the children are removed for physical abuse and only 3% for sexual abuse. There are interventions and there's monies available to employ alternatives to out-of-home placement. It is not an evidence-based practice, and we're harming children more than helping them. Statewide, there were 12,312 children displaced. Of those, 3,152 were African American. Minnesota is an extreme outlier, taking children at the 8th highest rate in America when rates of child poverty are factored in. The number of children taken from their parents per 1,000 impoverished children in 2021, 37.5 compared to a national average of 18.2. This is problematic. We do this under the guise that we're keeping children safe. So what I'm here to do is to introduce the fact that we are not, in fact, keeping children safe. We're actually harming them. The federal government has recognized this. They've actually published a harm of removal map that I would encourage folks to take a look at, as well as some legislation in both Washington and Iowa that's taken into account the harm that this system is causing the child by removing them. Children generally suffer worse outcomes when removed than if they had been allowed to remain in marginal homes. In studies of similarly situated children, those with social services involvement that were facing a possible removal, when the children were in fact removed compared to those remaining at home, they were 2 to 3 times, they had 2 to 3 times higher delinquency rates, higher teen birth rates, lower earnings as adults. They're 2 to 3 times more likely to enter the criminal justice system as adults, twice as likely to have learning disabilities and developmental delays, 6 times more likely to have behavioral problems. And as adults, they're more likely to have substance-related disorders, psychotic or bipolar disorders. And you can read the rest of those. Clinical research shows that children who are removed are overwhelmed with feelings of abandonment, rejection, worthlessness, guilt, and hopelessness. A lot of these reactions that they're having to removal and just to give you some background, I was a guardian ad litem for 4 years in both Hennepin County and Dakota County, a cultural specialist guardian ad litem, and I've been advocating for families for the past 10 years on the ground. We just piloted the bill in Hennepin County for the past 3 years. So I'm speaking from a practice standpoint of what's happening to these families. A lot of these reactions that the children are having once they're removed are blamed on the parent. No one's addressing the trauma of removal, although we have tons of research and data that shows removing children in the manner and the rates at which we do in Minnesota is causing more harm than leaving them in home. And here again, common mental health disorders seen among foster youth include post-traumatic stress disorder, reactive attachment disorder, anxiety, depression. I can't tell you how many children I had under the age of 10 years old that were on psychotropic drugs after being removed from home. Just the majority of them. And again, no one was addressing the fact that they've been ripped from their family, ripped from their community, ripped from everything that ever meant anything to them, anything ever familiar to them. And this is from DHS's Seeking Safety and Preventing Harm, their child welfare response to children and youth missing from care. And they posit that children in foster care are especially vulnerable to sex trafficking. And we know that in the federal raids, when they're recovering children that have been a part of these sex trafficking rings, a large majority of them were in foster care. And this is due to the social isolation that occurs once a child is removed and placed in care. The social and family support decreases, the transient formal support, and high levels of mental health diagnoses. And again, you all have copies of this to read through. I'm speeding through it for the sake of time. Minnesota tears families apart at one of the highest rates in America, more than double the national average. We recognize that there are still horrible stories about child abuse deaths, and that is exactly the point. All the needless removal steals time from finding the relatively few children in real danger. The worst thing Minnesota can do is to keep doubling down on its failed approach, as some have suggested. The more that workers are overwhelmed with false allegations, trivial cases, and children who don't need to be in foster care, the less time they have to find children in real danger. So they make even more mistakes in all directions. That's one of the reasons for the horrible stories about children left in dangerous homes. Minnesota's longstanding embrace of a take the child and run approach to child welfare, an approach that's only worsened in recent years, makes all children less safe. After the recommendations that were made in 2014, there was a 100% increase in Hennepin County of child removals. But guess who it was? Black and Native children. There was a 50% increase in child removals after those recommendations across the state. And we still have the horror stories that the Star Tribune just exploited recently. So removing more children is not the answer. Everyone has a stake in ensuring Minnesota's child protection system is fair and equitable. We're calling on our legislators to support the following legislative action: the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act. This bill would serve to protect not only African American families, but those that are disproportionately represented. It's an act that declares it is the.
So I'm going to stop it there, because there was some really good stuff that was said, but I want to get into what I believe would help. And I know people are going to be like, oh, here we go, Minnesota. But no, I'm being serious, because I believe that the things that we need to do, it is going to take us correcting and fixing things that happened in the past. I'm not asking for our government to be, even Minnesota, I'm not asking for y'all to say sorry or to do a formal apology for the past, because at the end of the day, you legislators, you guys weren't alive when these injustices and things were going on. But to correct them should be your first and foremost priority. Not giving about, saying sorry or, because at the end of the day, y'all didn't do that shit. So why would I expect an apology? And I think that's one thing, because it's not about, giving apologies or, looking for forgiveness, because at the end of the day, that shit's, I'm not going to say it's water under the bridge, but it's shit that they did on purpose. It's shit that they designed to do. And times change. People aren't the same. We all, that's one thing that I learned from my grandpa is, he wasn't, the area that he grew up in there weren't any black people. The first black person that he ever met was when he went to the Army and seen how they were treated. But then there was a stereotype because of the things that were on TV or, the news stories that came out, because of you're not seeing something in person and you're not seeing it for your own self. And you're only getting it from, movies, newspapers, which are geared a certain way to demonize or to put us in stereotypical situations and to make us all look bad. So when they see that color type person, they're like, oh, they're bad. No, that doesn't mean that, and I feel like we have to correct those wrongs, because a lot of families that I feel like this shouldn't even, what's the number for this bill? This bill is, let me get the right one, because there's two different ones. 716. So this one with Bobby Champion and the Minnesota African American Family Preservation Act is Act Senate File 716. And there's not many authors on it right now. It's from my understanding, it is, by looking at the page, yeah, it's ridiculous of how they say they want to come out here and do the right thing, but there's not even, this isn't something that's being talked about. I don't see them at press conferences like I see Leah Fenke or I see Sandra Feist. I think that's her name, Leah Feist, Sandra White Feist, whatever her name is. I see them doing press conferences for those type of things, or even sanctuary state or fair wages thing. I don't ever see things like this, them doing press conferences. And it's like, what about us? Because y'all want to hype up everybody else But when it comes to these things, and I want people to know too, I'm not going to sit here and hold punches and grudges, because I've literally been a part of a group with CMAH. And I'll tell you right now, I still to this day, I have a lot of problems with this bill. And I do. And that's why I don't like Bobby Champion. I don't like Linda Sloan. I don't like Thomas Berry. They literally, and here's at the end of the day, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I can literally show emails, because even when it comes to this other bill that I'm going to talk about, the Minnesota Migration Act, which is basically reparations for Americans, descendants of slavery, right? And yes, slavery was not legal up here, but in a certain way it was, because we did have where it was. We were, that's what all I'm asking for is for people to be educated. And I did find a video that was done last year at the state capitol, because they haven't talked about it this year too much. But this is the Migration Act, which is basically the reparations bill in Minnesota. And it is Traherne Cruz, Tashira Garraway, and I don't know who the other lady is. I think their names are on this video. So I'm just going to play it and let them speak. And it's about 20 minutes long, but I'm not going to play that. I will put the link in so you guys can see where to go get the video if you want to watch the whole thing.
According to the New England Journal of Medicine, reparations is the best way to approach the racial wealth gap in the country. It's President's Day. I believe 11 presidents were slave owners. George Washington owned about 300 slaves. We know General Sherman even owned slaves. Some of the early founders of Minnesota were slave owners, like Joseph Livanus Lowry, who was the founder of St. Cloud, was also the mayor of St. Cloud. He brought slaves to Minnesota. So today, on this President's Day, we want to make sure President Joe Biden addresses the racial wealth gap with reparatory justice policies. We have Tashira Garraway from Family Support Families. She's here. We have Daniel Davis from the Rondo community. She's here. We have Tova and Jeff from Jewish Community Action. They're here. We're all going to speak about reparations. And we have others here from JCA2, community members. And we're just going to talk real quick on this President's Day about reparations. We're going to start out with Daniel Davis. He's going to come up and talk to us about the history of Rondo.
I am Danielle Churcher, recently divorced. I'm Danielle Churcher. I am a double descendant of Rondo. Rondo is the Black American community that thrived from the 1920s to the 1960s, right here in St. Paul, Minnesota, in which both of my parents were children in that community. And there was something called eminent domain. Eminent domain came through and told them they can't live here anymore. And there were promises of things to help them leave, because there was a highway coming through so that they can bring forth military vehicles, transport, exports, and things like that. And so when they moved these families out, it was with a promise to give them back the 60 businesses they had lost and over 600 homes. What happened was racial covenants, not to sell to Black people. I'm so sorry, you don't have a house, so I can't give you a business loan because you have no collateral. How could you ever pay us back? And I can't give you a home loan, you have no business or no job. How can you ever pay for a home to get the collateral to get your business loan? And we surely can't sell this home to you, not with the covenant that says Blacks are not allowed, shall no Negro ever inherit this house or be sold to a Negro. And so with that, you have the projects of Mount Airy, which we landed, or the projects in North Minneapolis, which my uncle landed. And you split up families. You took brothers and sisters and divided them across the water. You put one family in this side and that family in that side, and your children grew up disdained, oppressed, and distant. You literally destroyed a community with just a highway. But that was on the backs of being one of the biggest racial things in our history, and that's Dred Scott being enslaved at Fort Snelling in Missouri Territory, i.e. St. Paul, Minnesota. And because that happened, No Negro shall ever have the full rights of a white man, for he is not a foreigner in his own land. Oh, well, that's interesting because Dred Scott got off scot-free and still a slave. So I think Minnesota has a lot to atone for. We should start right here with reparations, right here for the country called the United States of America, who not only allowed this, but I could have sworn Fort Snelling is a U.S. military base. That means the U.S. Army. Yes, the United States of America owned slaves. So let's go ahead and repair the descendants of chattel slavery. And guess what? It's already cost you $16 trillion in 10 years just to deny us. And that came out the Federal Reserve. So come on, Biden, do your thing. Remember, you ain't forgot about your black folks. You got our back, remember?
Again, Minnesota has the third biggest racial wealth gap in the country. Minnesota also has a $20 billion surplus. So we think the state of Minnesota should use that $20 billion surplus to address its massive racial wealth gap. Next, we have from JCA, we have Tova and Beth, and they're going to come up and say.
I just want to say this: that billions of dollars he's talking about is gone. The reserves gone. All that money is gone. That ain't never going to see the black community. They ain't never going to see nothing about no reparations. That money poof gone.
A few words.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for letting me come. And it's truly an honor to work on this campaign with all of you. My name is Tova Gorman-Bear. I'm the congregational organizer for Jewish Community Action, a local nonprofit based in St. Paul. And part of my work is organizing the Jewish community in solidarity with our marginalized neighbors. And that's why I decided to take a stand and be part of this reparations work. In Jewish culture and Jewish tradition, we have the concept of teshuvah, which is a word for repentance and repair, a way that you repair wrongs that have been done. And traditionally, you cannot begin teshuvah until you acknowledge and apologize for the wrongs that have been done, and also make concrete steps to change it and fundamentally transform the conditions that led to the harm in the first place. It's not just about saying sorry. It's not just about erasing what was done and trying to move on as if everything is a clean slate. You have to address the wrongs that have been done and really work for change. So that's why I'm here today with all these wonderful folks for reparations. And also because as white Jews in Minnesota, myself and many other white Jews, the pressure is on us to align ourselves with white supremacy and build our power on the backs of Black people. And we are not okay with that. That cannot happen. We have to act in solidarity with our marginalized neighbors rather than give in to the pressure of white supremacy.
What the fuck? White Jews?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. But
awesome.
Thank you.
So yes, as you're seeing, we're building partnerships. We have allies who have already achieved reparations for their community and for their nation. Now they're saying that it's time for the American chattel slavery to achieve reparations.
These people crazy as hell.
Better place to start than the place where George Floyd was
I don't even know if I can.
the place where Amir Locke was killed, the place where Marcus Golden was killed.
Hold on, I got to. I don't even know if I can even share this anymore. Damn, I should have really watched this a little bit more because Jesus, Lord, I didn't know they was doing all of that. And at the end of the day, I have no issues with other people, but the fact that they bring up that their people got reparations and that they want to sit there and work with us, well, you kind of work against us more than you work with us. And I don't understand that. But as I'm talking about this, I want to share what the bill is from the Senate and from the House. So the House file is 2397, and it is the Minnesota Migration Act. And it's an account established, report required, funding provided to study and provide grants for American descendants of chattel slavery who reside in state and money appropriated. Now, the original author was John Thompson. Now, I want people to understand that this at first was Senator John Thompson's bill. John Thompson was a Democrat who went through some things politically. I'm going to say he was politically assassinated, but was able to at least get the bill. Didn't have as many authors as it, which I thought kind of weird of how an African American who is a immigrant, you know what I'm saying, and somebody whose family actually was a part of descendants of, you know, chattel slavery, and it doesn't get any authors. I just found that really weird. I'm just gonna, y'all think what y'all want to think. Proof is in the pudding. And then here you have Pappas, Bolden, and I forget what the other one was. Oh, May Quaid. So there is, I want people to know there is bills out there. And if we're not informed on it, how are we supposed to be able to get these things passed? Because I'll tell you right now, you know, when I see, because voting Trump isn't going to get these bills passed, right? I want people to know that voting Trump is not going to get these bills passed, because I'll tell you, you don't see a Walter Hudson, a Lisa DeMuth talking about these, who are the two blacks in the GOP, in the Republican Party of Minnesota, right? You don't see other black representatives who are Democrats talking about this either. So I want people to understand that if we are going to literally get stuff passed, we have to organize and strategize together, right? Because we literally have people coming and talking for us that can't understand, that don't know what we go through. So are we going to continually to let people talk for us? Or are we going to do the talking for us, right? Instead of having these paid shills, because that's what I'm going to call it now, these paid spokesmen, these paid spokespersons that keep on talking for us, and we're never going to see anything, but they'll promote how much money they get, or how much money that they're bringing in, or how much money these bills are. But let me ask y'all this: how can we literally, right? Because I'm starting to believe that money's just imaginary at this point, right? That money's not going to ever fix shit. Because at the end of the day, you look at since 2020, right? And I was saying this 2 years ago in 2022, that I literally on paper can show you that over $1 billion has hit Minneapolis. Why is Minneapolis the worst that it's ever been? If all that extra money has hit Minneapolis, how is it that it's worse? The same way in Chicago, the same way in New York. How is it that all of this money is hitting these communities and those areas are worse? Philadelphia, Detroit. Please answer me that. So how is money going to solve the issues when it only has made our issues worse? If anybody can answer me that, that's all I want to know. Because I'll tell you one thing that I've learned: without education, we ain't getting nowhere. Because you can literally give us money, we're just going to blow it. Because first of all, we're undereducated. We don't know how to invest. Most of us don't know how to invest. We don't know what a 401k is. We don't know what a cash-only life insurance plan is. A retirement fund. You know what I'm saying? We don't know the in and outs of 1099s and all this other shit. Because they never wanted us to learn that type of shit. They never wanted us to learn how to be self-sufficient. They didn't want us to learn how to stand on our own too. They always wanted us to be able to lean on them. Right, let alone a will, right? Exactly. You know, there was some words that Khalees Houston said, you know, most people don't even know what what she say, ad litem is, a guardian ad litem is. They don't even understand the process of the CPS, right? We don't even understand the process of banking half the time. We don't even that's what's crazy, because they put, even, you know, I've said it myself in my own situation of growing up in Minneapolis and how I was taken out of the home. They put this paper in front of my mom talking about they were going to help me. It was going to make things better. It didn't make shit better. They literally, what they put in front of my mom, she signed away her rights and didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. They've literally been doing this shit for years, Hennepin County. And this is my thing of it is, right? I will never understand this, is how do governments literally can write resolutions proclaiming racism a public health crisis, but yet don't want to address anything. I will never understand that Hennepin County, Minneapolis, Ramsey, St. Paul, Red Wing, and I'm the one that authored the one in Red Wing. They don't even want to address shit that comes with it, right? Because they feel like, oh, and you know what's crazy is the night that shit got passed unanimously at the Red Wing City Council, I literally was excited. You know, I sat there and made a TikTok because I thought it was, you know, it was good. You know what I'm saying? But now I realize it was just a feel good moment. You know what I'm saying? Something that they could say that they did and get that pat on the back, like, oh, we did something. You know what I'm saying? We did something. We wrote them, we gave them Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying? We gave them Juneteenth. I ain't seen them Red Wing do shit really for Black History Month. Yeah. So I don't want to be on here for too much longer today, because I do have a interview conversation with Robert Davis at 1 o'clock, which is in about 3 hours. So I do want people to check back in, you know, later on this afternoon, because I will be having Robert Davis, who was wrongfully convicted, out of Akron, Ohio, on today at 1 o'clock. But back to these bills, you know, we really got to start paying attention, or we're going to get left behind. Because if we're focused on not what's the present ahead of us, instead of focusing on the future, we're definitely going to get left behind, because we have so many things that we need to fix. You literally have Minneapolis teachers that are about to strike. St. Paul voted last night to strike. And it's like, y'all just were giving more money. Why are you striking? Like, I don't get it. When are we ever going to stand up for our kids? And why does everything come down to money? I will never understand that. Why don't people want to understand that? When are we going to fight for our kids? You know, people, they want to silence Rashad Turner. They want to silence the Don Allens. You know, people that are screaming out about our system. You know, they want to silence the Angela Williams. They want to silence the Reverend Tim Christophers. And we allow them to silence them, instead of standing behind people that are actually want the embetterment of our communities. And we allow these people to silence them. We allow them to bully them. Why? Why? I really want to know why. Because if people really want to know why we don't get any change, look in the mirror. Because we got to stop blaming everybody else. Because when we literally forget everything and run, because that's what we're doing. We're running. That's why our communities look like this, right? That's why you can literally go in on YouTube and you can put some of the worst communities in America in YouTube, and you'll find live video 24 hours a day. Why? What are we running from? Why? Why do we keep on running? Let's rise. Let's make our communities great again. Let's make it where the streets are safe again. Right? Because at one point it was. America's never been great. Let's be honest. Those megas, they can think whatever they want. But America's never really been great because we've always been fighting. We've always been fighting to be recognized. We've always been fighting to be equal, to have our fair share, because we never have. If you are literally somebody that is an American descendant of slavery, you haven't got your fair share. Some people are still in that mud trying to get it out, still trying to make it out. And there's others that we look at our peers or our colleagues that have generational. Our generational didn't start off with a foundation. They weren't given the tools, the resources to be able to build their foundations, right? That's why most of our families have always been renters. Think about that. That's for a reason. How many people in their families have, you can say that damn near everybody in your family is a homeowner. I can't. You know, some of us, I didn't know anything about being a homeowner. Some of us still don't even understand how to be a homeowner because they've indoctrinated us to be renters because they didn't want a nation of thinkers. They wanted a nation of workers, right? They wanted us to be okay with not having anything, but just being satisfied with what we have. And yes, you should be satisfied. You should be grateful for what you have, but you should never be satisfied, because if you know that you can get better, why not go out there and get it? Why not that? But they make it hard for that, right? And we see it every day when it comes to banking, when we see it when it comes to jobs, see it when it comes to loans. So how is there not some type of systemic racism in America when the system literally embeds us into poverty, into incarceration, into uneducation? And yet we don't call it out. I don't see, what's crazy is, I still think about the numbers that Ms. Houston said during her presentation last Friday. And I think, how do we keep on? Because I feel like at this point, as much as we say about our education system, about the disparities, I feel like we say it now to promote it like we're the fucking worst. Because if we're not changing anything, why are we out here even talking about it? Because at the point, I feel like we're promoting it and that we're proud to be shitty. We're proud to have people that graduate Black and brown that can barely do 5th grade math, or they can't read past the 3rd grade. We're glad about that. We're happy. We promote that type of shit because we don't ever talk about changing it. I don't see the teachers striking over that type of shit. They're striking over the fact that they're not getting paid enough. Well, you look at the statistics. Why do you deserve more money? Shouldn't that matter? Shouldn't the students' grades, shouldn't the students' success go off of their pay? Because it doesn't in the courts. Like, why aren't we going off of that? Why aren't we going off of what teachers are just pushing kids through just so they can get them out of school, or so they don't have to see them next semester, or they don't have to be in their class next school year? Come on now. Let's keep it a buck. Because I know that shit goes on. But people don't want to have these conversations. They don't want to have them because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to have these conversations. That's why you don't see the important legislation, and they pick and choose what they want to deal with, right? That's why they keep us talking about this Second Amendment. about banning guns and what's another good one? About assisted suicide, right? So that we're not focused on keeping our families together. Or how do we get generational wealth so that our future generations are okay? They don't want us thinking about that because they don't want a nation of thinkers. They want a nation of workers, right? But it's coming to the point where they're replacing us, right? They're replacing skilled, non-skilled workers, fast food. And soon you're going to be going to get a burger or your taco or your fries from a robot. Everything's going to be literally you dealing with artificial intelligence. And yet we're not doing anything about it because we like that fast convenience. And at the end of the day, who wants to pay a cashier who works at McDonald's $20 an hour? We have to think about that because we're literally asking for these things, right? While they're taking away things at the same time. Because yeah, $20 an hour sounds great, sounds phenomenal. But what are they taking away for us to get that $20 an hour or that $15 an hour, which they shouldn't be taking away shit because it should go up with the cost of living, how everything is being overpriced. So I want people to think about that. I want people to think about that because a lot of people aren't. Damn. Colorado University on lockdown after a shooting. That was just 7 minutes ago. Holy shit. That's crazy. There's so many school shootings right now. And that's a college. Praying for the students at the University of Colorado, the Buffaloes, where Deion Sanders is at. That's crazy because we just had a fucking mass shooting where they let all the shooters, the arrested people go, but the juvenile. And it's crazy of how the old guy they arrested, he was connecting with the bombing in a whole nother state earlier this year. And it's like, what the fuck is really going on, man? Like, people really need to pay attention to what's going on. And it really, really, like, is like, yeah, but whatever. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about immigration. I'm here to talk about reparations. I'm here to talk about keeping the Black family together. I'm talking about the state from unslaving us to stop enslaving us. You know what I'm saying? I know I probably just said that wrong, but it is what it is. Y'all know what I mean. But I hope that I did see some people that were on here. Thank you, Mark Oliver, for sharing on Twitter. Thank you, Reverend Tim Christopher, for your comments. John Tail, Robert. Thank you for people for interacting. Thank you for watching today. And I hope that people are reaching out to your legislator. I hope people that are reaching out to their senators and asking them what is going on with this legislation. Why aren't they pushing these things through that are going to actually help our communities, you know, and keep our families together, keep our communities together. So with that being said, man, I hope everybody has a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And like I said, again, today at 1 o'clock, I will be back with Robert Davis, who is a wrongfully convicted inmate out of Akron, Ohio. We will talk about his case. I've had him on 2 times before, and this time coming on, just trying to get a refresh of what's going on with his case, and finding out how we can help him going forward. So win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish me well. Y'all have a great one.
Urban conservative.